Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, we're diving into a really significant concept in Islam, the Imamate. It's all about this idea of divinely guided leadership, a continuous source of guidance for the community. So let's just start with a fundamental question. Really think about it. When a prophet's time on earth is over, what's supposed to happen next? How does the community move forward? How is that divine message, kept safe and pure for generations to come? And that question, it really gets to the heart of the matter, which is this whole question of guidance. Because there's a core belief in Islam, and this is especially central to the Shia school of thought, that God's guidance doesn't just stop. The idea is that humanity is never just left on its own without a guide. Now, this isn't a completely unique concept. You can actually see parallels in other traditions. Just like Moses had leaders to carry his message forward and Jesus had his disciples to continue his work, Islam also has a framework to make sure the prophetic mission it doesn't just end. So, what is that framework? What's the answer to that big question we started with? Well, it's a concept known as the Imamate. So what is Imamate exactly? Well, within Shia Islam, it's this foundational belief in divinely appointed leaders. And that's the key part. These are leaders believed to be chosen directly by God to protect and carry on the prophet's mission. So this isn't like a political race you can win. It's a spiritual station, a divine appointment. So, okay, what's the job description here? What does an imam actually do? It really boils down to three core functions. First, to preserve the faith, to keep the original message from getting corrupted. Second, to explain the divine message, making it understandable and relevant for people's lives. And third, to ensure justice, acting as a moral compass for the whole community. As you can imagine, a role like that requires some pretty extraordinary qualities. This is definitely not a job for just anyone. So let's take a look at the kind of character that's required, according to the scripture itself. The Quran actually gives us a really powerful description in chapter 32. It says, "And we made from among them leaders guiding by our command, when they were patient and had certainty in our signs." This one verse, it really lays the groundwork for understanding what makes these guides so special. Let's just unpack that verse for a second. We see three key things pop out. First, patience and moral strength, the ability to be steadfast no matter what. Second, certainty in divine signs, a really deep, unshakable conviction. And third, and this is so crucial, their guidance comes directly from God's command. It's not based on their own opinions or political ambitions. And that distinction is everything. The fact that their guidance comes from a divine command, not from personal whim, it changes the whole dynamic. It helps us see this role not as one of power, but as a spiritual connection, almost like a living bridge to the divine. Let's make this crystal clear. The role of an imam is not about domination or control. It's not the same as being a typical political ruler, no. Instead, it's entirely about service, about guidance, and about being a spiritual guide for people. The authority here is spiritual, and it's meant to elevate people, not to rule over them. And in a practical sense, that's exactly what the imam does. They act as that bridge. They connect the profound truths of revelation to the messy, complicated day-to-day reality of our lives. They help people figure out how to apply these spiritual principles to everything they do. Which brings us to our final thought here, where we can kind of zoom out and see the big picture. The imamate is really understood as this incredible, ongoing, sacred trust. So, you see, the imamate is so much more than just a theological point. It's seen as this beautiful, continuous story of God's care for humanity. It's a powerful statement that says divine guidance never actually left, and that a connection to truth is always, always available to us. And that idea is perfectly captured in this phrase, a sacred trust. It's not about worldly power or getting ahead. It's a deep spiritual responsibility to help lead people closer to God. It is fundamentally about service. And I want to leave you with this final thought to just kind of chew on. If we took this idea seriously, that leadership is a sacred trust, how would that change the way we look at authority in our own lives, in our world today? Not just spiritual authority, but all authority. It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.